we're getting into the most invisible part of the curriculum, the most interesting, I think, and what it makes special, this permaculture course. In many permaculture courses, this is left out, and the invisible structures is where most of the projects fail. Actually, all of the projects I know don't fail for technical reasons, but for structural reasons on the social, legal, or financial part. So is what you must look before getting involved in any project, and what you must try to fix before start building banana circles or compost toilets, because that's what holds, that's the glue of the whole project, that's the glue that joins all the elements in a system together. So it's very important to check all of these three, and there's three aspects. Well, we already saw ethics and principles. Definitely that's invisible too, and that's reflected on the visible things, which is tables, buildings, grounds, gardens. All that is the visible part of permaculture. The invisible is the social arrangements, the legal, and the financial. And this is in every project that exists in the world. Even in the indigenous communities, they have a very complex or simpler organization of social rules, guidelines, ways of behaving. And today, this hour, I'm going to talk specifically about the social part. It's very ironic because I was very, very antisocial in my former life. And it's inevitable that we're social beings. We have to deal with the human complexity, no matter what. So we might as well face it and learn it instead of just hiding. So the dream of the hermit living in the forest, self-sustainable, I tried to do that too, and it was fun, but not sustainable socially. So here I am teaching about social things. And what is the social component? Is basically how is the ownership set up in a project? Who's the boss? Like, that's the first question I unconsciously ask to myself whenever I get to any project, either consulting or just in a group of friends. You automatically, you look who's the authority here, who has the last word, who's the boss, who owns this thing. Because that's, if you want to make change, you get to make change through that channel. So it sounds a little bit hierarchical, I know, but there is always an authority wherever you go. Could be spread in several people, in a board, or in everybody, which is consensus. I don't like consensus. I haven't seen any project, and Scott agrees with me on this. Consensus leads to a stagnation of decisions. Like, you need someone or a body of group of people or something that makes a final decision. So first thing in a project that you want to see is, okay, who's the alpha, basically. Sounds very biological, but that's true. Who's the boss? What is the structure here for decision making? Decision making is key. What is the process for deciding if we do compost toilets here or not, for example? If you think about it, it's not my decision. I'm not the boss. It's a whole invisible structure behind this farm that is invisible, that therefore makes it much more intriguing and interesting, and you have to know many more abilities than just designing to find out what is the true structure behind any farm. Especially communities, now there's a burst of intentional communities, I mean, since the 60s maybe, or the 70s. And Scott has a wide variety of experience. He has been in many, and still one will never find the perfect one. One is always looking for something, and they evolve and they change. So what is that decision-making system in communities? How does it work? I definitely don't recommend consensus, which is a system of making decisions. Consensus means everybody has to agree to do something. So if you're in a group of 100 people and one doesn't agree, you're stuck. You cannot do anything. And basically, this doesn't work, especially if you. Thank you.
Who has bug spray?
Huh? Bug spray, okay. So, where am I? Decision making. Consensus, okay. Is that correctly spelled?
Yes.
Wow. So, we're in consensus that is correctly spelled. So, for things that are physical and visible, it's very easy. Like, okay, we all agree that this is black. That's simple. But for making decisions of what systems are you going to install, what type of buildings are you going to make, where is the money going to go in a community, you don't want consensus. And there's also anarchy, which you can try. Anarchy, which means everybody does what they want. Doesn't work for creating a community. Maybe one day when we are evolved enough, it might work. I don't think this is set rules. We are evolving as a humanity, and things that work in the past don't work anymore, and hopefully in the future things that work now won't work and will improve. So what other ways of making decisions do we have? How is your government, for example, Tasha, in Japan? What is the structure of power there?
So technically a democracy.
Democracy, which means you vote for a group of people that makes the decisions for you. So it's a group of people in power. Then we have a dictatorship. And even though it sounds very like radical, but many intentional communities have dictatorship. It's just who put the more money, who owns this land, that's the boss. And he has the final word, or she, or the couple that made it the whole thing. So that is a dictatorship. It's usually very well hidden by, no, we're not, we'll take you in account and blah, blah. And when it comes to the hands-on thing is, look, I put the money, this is my land, I'll do whatever I want. So you'll encounter this in many intentional communities. I was personally looking for visited many farms, visited many structures. First looking for ecological stuff, but then I realized that I needed to find the invisible structures. Thanks to taking this course 5 years ago, it's like, okay, it doesn't matter how beautiful the place is, how perfect it is. If there's a dictator, I don't like it. Or I have to like the dictator, which also is not a good deal. You end up being the dictator too. So this might be disguised, it's not open. Like asking about invisible structures in any place, you get resistance. Like, why do you want to know? That's not your business, that's so on. So it's a very delicate subject. And here you have to use your observation skills in a more subtle level, because it's not obvious. So it's much more subtle. Who's the boss? Sometimes the boss is the kid of the dictator. Who knows? And I've seen whole families that who decides where to go in vacation is the 5-year-old. It's true. Like, unbelievable. Huh? A born dictator. Yeah, they exist. And leadership, let's not confuse dictatorship with leadership. Leadership naturally emerges. Dictatorship is imposed. So that's very different. when a good leader starts becoming a dictator, it needs to start using rules and things to impose his way or her way. But when he's a leader, people naturally, he won't need to impose things. So care for the land, care for the whole community will emerge naturally. Sounds very utopian, but I mean, we have to aim for something like that. Which other ways of making decisions do you know? How is in the Dominican Republic?
Democracy.
Democracy, how does it work?
A corrupt democracy?
Well, corruption, you know.
Socialist. Corruption, I think, is a form of government.
It's a form of government.
Government is totally corrupt, yes.
For example, in Costa Rica, we have laws, we have democracy, but who decides if follow them or not? At the end, is the people who manage the laws as they want, and it's more an anarchy than a democracy, I'll say. Because the rules exist. Are they implemented? No. And I know this sounds crazy for many countries in Europe maybe, and maybe Australia, I don't know how strict they are, but here basically it's a corrupted system. And I know we're not the only country with that thing, but basically people choose if they follow the rules or not.
And if you're in government, you basically do what you want.
Huh?
If you're in government, you basically do what you want back home.
Okay.
That's what happens.
So basically, most of our power structures are corrupted in the larger sense. So we cannot really rely. I'm talking more as a Latin American, but I'm sure the rest of the world have similar problems. We cannot rely on the power or the authority structures that are on top of us. As we saw with, if there is pollution in water, they don't fix it. They just raise the level of accepted pollution in the water. So really, we're not being taken care of by the government. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like a functioning plutocracy or oligarchy.
Oligarchy.
It's not really a democracy at all. Yeah. Or plutocracy.
Corporate oligarchy is
Corporatism.
monarchy.
Monarchy.
Collusion. I mean, America was a constitutional republic. It wasn't ever founded as a democracy.
It's not a democracy.
It's a republic.
Well, how is the decision-making process in a republic? You choose.
Yeah, there were three systems of, there's like the Senate, the Congress, and the House of Representatives that were supposed to kind of be the checks and balances on power. Then it turned into basically it was always a oligarchy, and now you could say it's a plutocracy.
What's a plutocracy?
Basically the elite rich
Run.
rule.
Like
But
a
it's
monarchy.
Corporate oligarchy. Yeah, it's a corporate.
He said,
Well, huh?
I mean, if you want to get really specific, you say corporate imperialism.
Okay.
Because they're transnational corporations.
I don't think that's how it's set up.
Exactly.
Well, but this discussion is.
But it was like a representative democracy. There was a representative democracy on the surface. Of service, yeah. But the checks and balances aren't from. I mean, there are checks and balances from the House and the Congress, but the overarching checks and balances are the judicial, the legislative, which is the Congress and House, and then the executive, which is the president, who's in charge of the army and.
So, yeah, I don't understand very well how that complexity, but it's an example of how things are set up are not necessarily how they work.
Yeah.
So,
Because it's the influence of money within the system that allows you to experience
yeah.
because you can buy politicians. You can buy
So it's very linked to the financial. As I was saying, the one who put the money has the power. So as it is set, even in governments or intentional communities, usually what it says on the paper, as it was established is not how it works. So that's why it's such a subtle thing to observe, because in the paper might say something, but the money is the one who rules in the back. So it's a very delicate structure to observe. What is the social, legal, and financial? They're all mixed together, of course. The social is more the part of the relationships, basically. How are the relationships established in the community? What is the decision-making system? And this is usually not in paper, so you have to observe it. And it's ideal that is in paper, because what is written and what has legal backup, at least you can have something to prove. But they're very rarely written, all the social rules, and even in our society, the most important social rules are not written anywhere, like say thank you and please, things like that. But it's a very invisible thing to observe. So I think the best way to learn about this is by observing visit different communities. If you're looking for a community or a farm, even nuclear families, how do they work? Right now, the decision making is totally destroyed. Like, how are decisions being made? Again, it's by money and by not the true ethics of permaculture. It's not true care. It's because of money or other things. So even if you go from the big to the small, we have the same issue in a nuclear family of how do you make decisions in there. And I think families are also, they're a very unstable structure right now. And I don't know, in your countries here, we have like at least 50% divorce in the first 3 years. People get divorced because there's no structure to making decisions in the marriage anymore. It used to be through religious stuff or whatever, but now that is gone. And now it's anarchy, basically. So it affects every level of the society. So the challenge is to co-create and invent, basically, and generate a different way of relating. So that's when permaculture gets more complicated, because it's very easy to relate elements like the chicken with the feed, but between ourselves is a much more complex story. So for me, is the key factor to observe first in any system. Even if you're just working there for a consulting for a week, depending on how you observe this, your project might be successful or not. So it's a lot to see, even if you're just a designer, if you're not getting involved necessarily. Who are you talking with the right person when you're like this happened to me with the toilets with the government, the compost toilets I was telling you yesterday, the other day. I thought I was talking with the boss, who was the director of the place, and he said, I'm just going to pay for compost toilet, not other thing, and I don't care if my subordinates, is that the word, subordinates, don't like it. And I ignored that. And who had the power, really? The subordinates that were living there with the toilets, and they sabotaged toilets, and that's it. So it was a failure.
Yeah, but I think the solution in that case is involving all the users in the development of the project, right?
Yeah, I try,
And
but
like
they
to show them how to use them and the benefits to their ecosystem and their social life.
I did like 4 workshops of my presentation
and
to them and everything. They just didn't like the director. So to agree with the toilet was to agree with their boss, who they didn't like. So it can be sabotaged by even if they like the toilets. And they actually call me. Some call me, I'm installing a compost toilet, and I'm like, it's crazy. But so that's really important for any design. Who is asking you to do it? How does the social relationship work in everything? And what I was okay, so the best way to explain this is through examples, and there's many examples in the world of cooperatives, sustainable intentional communities that have long lives, like gaviotas in Colombia is one.
Oh yeah, they're pretty cool group.
Gaviotas, Colombia, then
Que son comunidades.
sí, Finhorn.
Ellos recuperaron una finca entera devastada y la sembraron en pinos. Y tienen una comunidad entera trabajando.
¿Dónde está
con los
Finhorn? Suecia, no,
Súper
Ireland.
interesante.
Ireland, ¿verdad?
No, mira,
Scotland.
yo fui a
Scotland.
Colombia. Ese tipo sabe manejar.
Finhorn, Gaviotas. There are a few communities. There is one initiative, I think it was an anarchist city, I forget, this is in Denmark. Christian?
Cristiani.
Uh-huh. Christian, I cannot. Christiania, yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting to research all these communities that have their marginal communities, basically living on the edge as good permaculturists, and how they have come up with different ways of relating and decision-making process. Not all of them have succeeded, but you learn from mistakes. So it's good to research about intentional communities, organization systems, and all of this, and see why they have failed, why they have succeeded, what did they do in their cultural context. Don't ever try to just copy the recipe that worked in Sweden to Costa Rica, because it will fail, for example, or vice versa. So don't just copy recipes on social stuff. And there's a really good book called Eco Villages. I don't remember now the author. I think Scott has it there in the list. But he has stories of all these communities and why they have failed. There's one I really like. It was a spiritual community, like 30 members, and they bought the land. And they say, well, since we have spirituality in common, we won't. We don't need guidelines. I mean, we're all illuminated now. Why? We will get along really well and so on. And they moved to the land, and everybody was growing food, but their dogs, they didn't make rule about pets. End of the community. The dogs packed. They all became also spiritually bonded, and they bite a kid and they create problems, and then all the spirituality was gone. Like, you kill my dog, he bite my kid, and forget it. So the creation of guidelines are key. And so whenever you move or go to a place, what are the guidelines? Look for that. Behavioral guidelines, and how do they, what is the rules of the place? And hopefully they have some. That's why I like the invisible structure that called my attention more, because it was the longer lasting one. It was monasteries in all traditions, not specifically religious, but they had clear guidelines. You come in there, you know the rules. There's no question about it. If you want to stay, you follow them. If you don't, you leave. That's it. It's very simple, and there's no questioning of it. Other guidelines that are not respected, why are they don't work really. So places that have no guidelines, you really don't know how to relate or how to behave. And nowadays, I mean, I think before, like thousands of years ago, we probably knew how to relate, but we have been completely messed up by television, by internet, by Facebook, and we really don't know how to relate. Here is very easy, I don't know, because it's just 2 weeks. We are like-minded, we like the same subject, we came for the same subject matter. But I mean, give us a few years and we'll see many things emerging, you know, even a few more weeks. And I can see how I'll start going crazy, because you leave the cups everywhere and we have to wash your cups and things like that. So, so it's important. Gavin will kill us all one day, imagine.
He's already going crazy.
That's stereotyping.
That's true, all these stereotypes start to coming in, like more obviously, like, oh, he never takes a shower, he's blah blah.
2
Huh?
days.
I know exactly.
It's in everyone's journal. Today was a great day. Can't believe it.
So, so for example, the diet. This is just one thing. For 2 weeks, we adapt to any diets. We're fine. I mean, I know many of you weren't vegetarians, so need a lot more fruit and so on.
They are.
So, meaning, in 2 weeks, you don't see the social patterns emerge. You don't see them. So don't go just visit for 5 days and say, I'm going to live here forever and buy a place. People do that. I mean, I did it. I bought a piece of land. Like, these are some of the crazy things I've done in my past life. And after a permaculture course, I don't want to return to my life. I'll just go and buy a place and that. I went and saw it for a day and say, I like it. It has water sources. I checked all the visible stuff. And the invisible, no, that's fine. Like, it has all the perfect natural stuff. Well, the invisible was a mess, and luckily I could sell it again back, and I could get out of it. But
How was it?
well, the mess was more, I think, in my life than with the place itself, because to get the money, you need funding. How do you get funding if you don't want to get in a bank?
Well, there's what you did.
No, it's recorded, I won't say it. No, después les cuento. But meaning, I'm just giving examples. This is not real life, but I did it, It's in Dominical, condominium, like, anyway, but yeah, don't follow your heart so quickly when buying land, okay? I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't have any debt now, so I'm free. But meaning, the invisible structure, no matter how perfect is the visible, is the thing you have to look first. I lost the train of thought for this story. Okay, guidelines. So clear guidelines, always ask for them whenever you're either buying from a land or buying in a condominium or designing a project. What are the guidelines? It might be, I was saying, for example, the monasteries have very clear guidelines. You go there, you know what you have to do. And if you don't do it, you leave. And they all have a similar goal. Yeah?
You were saying that you have to go to like a retreat before you can even go to your ashoka, or your monastery, ashram.
Can you speak louder? I don't hear.
You said you have to go on like a retreat before you go to your ashram and stay there.
Yeah.
What do you think about like that kind of a thing where you have to have like a trial run or something else before you're allowed into the community?
Mm-hmm.
Like for other things besides ashrams?
Probation.
Probation. That's called probation, and I think it's totally good to do it and acceptable. For example, in the case of, I'll remember your question. Okay. For example, many farms have this. It's kind of a probation, and many businesses actually have them. No, they hire you for a month to see how you work, and then you sign the contract. So in the case of the ashram where I am, you have to go first to a retreat to see if you like and if it's what you're looking for. So that's the first filter. Then if you like it and you want to continue, you go to study in San Jose, because now all the classes are in there. Or depend, like I was sent immediately to work because it was needed, and I had skills that were needed, so I missed the classes, which I missed. And I stayed there. And you have to, for a certain period of time, as any volunteer, you pay an amount, as in any farm where you're volunteering for food and lodge. And depending on how did you adapt to the guidelines? Because some people say they adapt, but they really don't adapt. So you're just in front of me. I'm not looking at it. And so as time evolves, many people stay, many people leave. So it's a natural selection process. And I think everywhere is like that. Jobs are like that, farms. So the common glue that joins a community or a project or a business together has to be the same. Otherwise, there's no direction. And I mean, we'll see it in every project. What is the goal? So when you find out the guidelines, the decision making, who owns the thing, also what is the goal of this place? Is it to be a permaculture farm? Is it an event hosting place? Is it just a food production place? For example, where I am is not, permaculture is not the main center. There's many people who doesn't even know what permaculture is. I mean, now they do because I've been teaching, but that's not the glue. So some people that come just for permaculture, they don't adapt to the rest. And so what is the main vision of the place that you're going, or the place you are designing? So whenever you're creating a project, even for your life, what is the goal? What are you looking for? And this is the most difficult questions to answer sometimes. What do I want? When I was choosing what to study, I mean, I think at 17 everybody's very confused. At least I was. And what do I study? The options are just, I didn't like any of the options. They were all leading me to a job in the city. 8-hour works, maybe good pay, maybe not. It was very depressing. I said, I prefer to be a maid. I said that to my mother, like, no, that's not what I want. But I remember in that time, many people is just looking for how much money I'm going to earn in this career. And not thinking even where are they going to be ending up living. So the clarity of where do I want to be, how my schedule will look like if I choose this career. Doctors, I think they're crazy. How do they choose that? I mean, their schedule is terrible. So just thinking about the schedule you'll have, depending what you choose to do and what you choose to study, is important. So clear vision, clear goals of the place, of your life, of the project you're doing, of the design project that you're doing. What is for example, just doing a rainwater system. I need to know what's the vision of the customer. Does he want just to treat the water and hide it and not have problems with the water? Or does he want it to be a showcase for the tourists of the rainwater ecological system? So just that different goal of a visible structure is important to know. Oh my God, I have no time. So but I have a presentation of an example of a decision-making process.